Okay, let's dive into this. The 2026 World Cup final was really supposed to be this historic clash of footballing titans. But instead, well, it ended in an absolute storm of controversy, physical altercations, and these incredibly deep cultural divides. So today, in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly what happened when Spain met Argentina on the pitch. And honestly, more importantly, we're going to look at the complex psychological and cultural narratives that were swirling around off the pitch. We'll be breaking down the facts, the allegations, and the very real impending consequences.
Right off the bat, to understand the fallout, we've got to look at the stark reality of the match itself. Because a quick statistical comparison here tells a fascinating story of two completely different approaches to the beautiful game. Look at Spain. They secured a 1-0 victory, marked by fluid, dominant possession. And incredibly, they played over 2 hours of high-stakes football without receiving a single yellow card. I mean, wow. Contrast that with Argentina, who had 0 shots on target across 120 minutes, picked up 6 yellow cards, and saw a red card for Enzo Fernandez. It was quite literally a fierce clash between technical precision and aggressive disruption.
To make sense of all this drama, we're going to break it down into 5 key areas. Number 1, a one-sided final. Number 2, breaking down the brawl. 3, the victimhood phenomenon. 4, passion or provocation. And 5, FIFA's impending investigations.
Let's start right in with Section 1, a one-sided final.
The stylistic mismatch we just talked about was glaring from the very first whistle. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. 113. That is the staggering number of fouls Argentina committed throughout this entire tournament, which is the absolute highest of any team. To survive the rounds, they leaned heavily into the sport's darker arts. Tactical fouls, throwing elbows, and simulation, diving. Meanwhile, Spain's commitment to movement and possession quietly but incredibly effectively dismantled those anti-football measures, leaving Argentina entirely frustrated and unable to register a single shot on goal. Moving right along to Section 2, breaking down the brawl.
So, the frustration that had been building up over 120 goalless minutes, it didn't just vanish at the final whistle. It exploded into absolute physical chaos on the pitch. Now, it is so easy to get lost in the frenzy of a post-match scuffle, so let's step through this exact chain of events with complete clarity. First, the whistle blows and Spain's Rodri runs from the dugout to celebrate. As he passes Nahuel Molina, Molina appears to thrust aggressively right at him. Boom, that's the fuse. Next, Spain's Eric Garcia sprints over to back up his teammate, at which point Argentina's Leandro Paredes gets involved, jabbing Garcia in the throat. Then, when Spanish substitute Gavi tries to intervene, he's forced to the ground by Thiago Almada and pushed in the face by Paredes. Even the coaching staff gets into it. Argentine assistant coach Roberto Ayala actually appears to hold Garcia by the throat and strike Dani Olmo. It was wild.
But then, in the wake of all that chaos, Argentina manager Lionel Scaloni offered a very diplomatic spin. He said, "We are gracious in victory and we must be gracious in defeat. Today we are showing that we know how to lose." The juxtaposition here is striking, isn't it? The manager's calm, measured words stand in massive contrast to the violent reality we just walked through on the timeline. Because while Spain's Unai Simon was politely shaking hands, several Argentinian players were actively initiating altercations and later turning their backs on the newly crowned champions during the trophy presentation. Honestly, it's a textbook PR move that totally ignores the physical reality of what the entire world just watched.
Which brings us to Section 3, the victimhood phenomenon.
To really understand the mindset of the Argentine squad and their fan base in the face of this massive disconnect, we need to look through a sociological lens. Enter the concept of collective victimhood. This is an actual social psychology term describing a group's shared belief that it is being unfairly targeted or mistreated. Now, whether this belief fully reflects reality or not, it becomes a core part of the group's identity. It strengthens internal solidarity and creates a very rigid divide between us and them. For Argentina, a team that has won an incredible amount of silverware in the last 5 years, this creates a fascinating paradox. They view themselves simultaneously as the undisputed best in the world and the sport's greatest victims.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Argentine midfielder Rodrigo de Paul perfectly embodies this exact mentality. In the aftermath of the final, rather than reflecting on his team's lack of offensive output or their obvious disciplinary issues, he posted this statement. He claimed the world was spreading conspiracy theories simply because Argentine's smiles and ways get under their skin. It's a textbook example of collective victimhood, right? He's completely framing the global criticism of their on-pitch behavior as a targeted, jealous attack against their very culture.
Let's move into Section 4, passion or provocation.
Because this debate over Argentina's conduct, it's not just about some fouls on a pitch anymore. It has sparked a massive cultural divide and some very severe off-pitch allegations. The international backlash has been brutal. Global media and prominent pundits absolutely did not hold back. The New York Times literally described the performance as tetchy, petulant, and distasteful. Former Germany international Thomas Hitzelsperger openly referred to the team as disgusting sportsmen who basically spent the entire match just whacking Spanish players. To much of the outside world, this was a glaring display of poor sportsmanship and dirty tactics.
But hey, it is absolutely vital we balance this narrative by looking at the fiercely loyal local perspective. For many Argentinians, this physical irreverence is actually a beloved badge of honor. As Argentine lawyer Leo Simone passionately argued, critics confuse arrogance with pride. He pointed out that South American football is inherently tough, adding bluntly, it's football. If you don't like being hit, play volleyball. So from this viewpoint, their rebelliousness isn't dirty at all. It's just a misunderstood cultural expression of giving it their absolute all.
However, the criticism definitely extends far beyond just physical play, moving into some very serious allegations of racism. For instance, Hollywood actor Samuel L. Jackson publicly urged fans not to support Argentina, outright labeling it one of the most racist countries in the world. And this follows specific incidents during the tournament, including FIFA actually condemning an Argentine supporter who shouted at Black American influencer IShowSpeed to go cry at the zoo during a live stream.
To counterbalance this heavy global criticism, we have to look to Argentine sociologist Ivan Schuliaker. While he totally acknowledges that racism exists and shouldn't be denied, he fundamentally questions the moral high ground of Western critics. He argues that these labels come from colonizing countries that have not yet fully resolved the issue of racism. It's a defense that basically asks the rest of the world to take a hard look in the mirror before judging Argentine culture through a purely Western lens.
Finally, Section 5, FIFA's impending investigations. So the crucial point is that beyond the social media arguments, there are highly tangible, bureaucratic consequences looming right now over the Argentine Football Association. FIFA's disciplinary committee has appointed an ethics prosecutor specifically to look at that post-match brawl. They're evaluating this under Article 13 of the Disciplinary Code, which covers offensive behavior and fair play violations. And guys, this is a big deal because the prosecutor has the power to enforce actual global suspensions for the players and coaches involved in the fracas, like Molina, Paredes, Almada, and Ayala. Plus, they can levy heavy financial penalties against the AFA for bringing the sport into disrepute. Let's move to and see how this builds a larger picture, because this isn't an isolated incident for the Argentine Football Association. There is a very clear historical pattern of disciplinary issues. We're talking a £20,000 fine for a political Falklands banner back in 2014, to fines for Emiliano Martinez's behavior in 2022, Enzo Fernandez's highly controversial chants in 2024, and Martinez receiving a 2-match ban for hitting a camera later that exact same year. This recurring track record is exactly why FIFA is investigating the 2026 World Cup final so thoroughly. They aren't just looking at one game, they're looking at a compounding pattern of behavior.
Yet, despite all the swirling controversies, the impending fines, and the massive global media backlash, we really cannot ignore the reality on the pitch over the last half-decade. Argentina are 3-time world champions. They have achieved totally unmatched dominance, winning the Copa America in 2021 and 2024, the Finalissima, and the 2022 World Cup, while reaching the final again in 2026. They are undeniably a modern footballing dynasty, possessing just incredible resilience and world-class talent.
Which leaves us with this final, profound contradiction to reflect on today. We've looked at the stats, we've broken down the brawl, we've explored the sociological theories, and reviewed the disciplinary track record. The ultimate question we are left with is this: can a team truly be the undisputed kings of the sport while remaining its ultimate victims? It's a paradox that completely defines modern Argentine football, and it's a debate that will surely rage on long after the impending FIFA investigations are concluded. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the narratives behind the game.